Hi, Professor Cliff. Okay, so first of all, welcome to my apartment. This is my bedroom. Hope you can hear me well. I'm using a handheld camera and it doesn't really have the best sound quality, so you may have to turn up just a little bit. But I hope you can hear me. I'm gonna try to speak really loudly. So as I said, I was gonna try my best to get you this information before the end of the day today. I know it's kind of pushing time right now, but with working 10 to 7, it's been a pretty hectic day. However, I'm going to keep my word and I'm going to get this to you by the end of the day. So, for our presentation, we went through everything just like the rest of the classmates did about the ban on cell phone usage for our survey. Out of all participants, I had exactly 30 participants. I had 29 that participated in the survey through the SurveyMonkey generator, and then I did have one respondent who was actually through a telephone message. So actually I got to try 2 different ways of getting the survey out there, one through SurveyMonkey, the other one through actually speaking to someone over the telephone, which is something you don't really see nowadays, so that was really interesting. So starting off, as a summary, there's a few interesting points I found out. As of present of April 2016, the state of Tennessee allows the legality of cell phone usage while driving behind the wheel. This entire time I thought there was a giant ban on it. However, there is absolutely no ban on it in the state of Tennessee. It is prohibited. However, there's actually no exact law against it. So there's really no way that you can, I guess, technically be fined. I found this out. While highly dangerous to an individual's safety, the state of Tennessee is with other states in the Mid-South, so including us, Georgia, Florida, North and South Carolina, Alabama, and even down to Texas, they have yet to create a ban on cell phone usage while operating a motor vehicle. So just like the rest of the students, the survey was conducted for only student learning purposes only, however also to help us gain a much more huge amount of insight into the overall aspect that is texting while driving and learning more about the dangers of it. So like I said, 29 of the response was conducted through them on SurveyMonkey, and also my other respondent was through actually a telephone voice call. So looking at our problem statement, the overall basis of the survey was to gain information from individuals who may be affected by unsafe drivers who are either texting or making a call, if not doing both within the same time frame. I did use 5 different sources, one from a website called textinganddrivingsafety.com, which is a website that is only based on giving really good facts about the dangers of texting and driving. Through this, I was able to actually gain a lot of statistics, which I will share here in a second. However, these are a bunch of statistics that I found really useful. Some were marked back all the way back to 2011, so that was a really interesting fact to see how much more increase has gone into the dangers of texting and driving ever since 2011 to now, which is 5 years later. I used that website. I used another one called handsfreeinfo.com, which is just a website that is based on just giving much different types of facts. Through this, I was actually able to gain a bunch of facts about the driving dangers whenever driving and texting at the same time. My third resources I used was at a website called iihs.org, which stands for the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety. It is an organizational website. Through this website, I was actually able to gain the actual map statistics about which states actually have a ban on cell phone usage while driving and which states do not. This is where I learned the information about all the states in the Mid-South region not having a ban on cell phone usage. Another website that I used was ncsl.org, which stands for the National Constitution State Legislatures. And through this, I was actually able to gain, just like ihs.org, however, this was a much more textual and informative way through actual text, so through actual writing, which states use bans and which ones do not. And through both of these websites corresponding together, I actually learned that more towards the West Coast is where they have a huge ban on it, versus over here on the East Coast as well. And then I did use one more. This website was called atvn.org, which is a television network. The television network's website. ATVN standing for Annenberg Television News.org. Like I said, this is through a TV broadcasting system, and through them I actually learned a good amount of information, which I will share for in a second. But it was information that showed that, according to just a couple of months ago, teenage girls who had the option to start driving, they were twice as likely, not just like more, just about one, but twice as likely more to actually text or make a call or use any other type of electronic equipment to their advantage behind the wheel versus teenage boys. So this was a really interesting article to me. Before I get into this, something that I found interesting after reading about that information was that more than half of my surveyors were actually women. So it was actually really interesting to see the type of results that I got. So moving on, as I was saying, according to textingandDrivingSafety.com, 77% of young drivers claim that they can safely and confidently text while driving. This is through my website that I gained a lot of the statistical information from. However, I found this claim happened to be false because according to CNBC, which is the Central News Broadcasting Channel, I found out that in 2015, the National Safety Council, or NSC, accounted that 27% of car crashes, which is exactly 1,535,490, were caused by cell phone usage, which is under 2011's percentage of 13%. So this is raised up more than double within the past 5 years. Situation analysis. In order to gain the amount of information I received through secondary research, I had to dig a little bit deeper to attain it. So the internet resources that I used, like I spoke about earlier, was textingandDrivingSafety.com, which, as I said, is a website that goes into great detail about the dangers of cell phone usage while behind the wheel in a much more statistical information type of way. While very visual, the website information was also very educational and informative. I found a really good amount of information on here. I actually found out that the average person who texts and drives looks down at their cell phone at a minimum amount of 5 seconds. Well, driving at 55 miles an hour within that allocated amount of time, that is more than a length of one football field. So, if you think about that, if you look at for 5 seconds going 55 miles an hour, you drove past an entire football field. And I'm just saying that is a good amount of distance for you to reckon to somebody. I mean, that is just dangerous in and of itself. Also, another one that I used was, like I said, IHS.org, which was the insurance, international insurance of highway safety. This provided the information to help show me in visual ways which states, like I said, in the United States had banned laws against the cell phone usage in vehicles and which did not, and another one being the NCSL, National Constitution of State Legislators. Just like IHS, like I said earlier, it provided the same amount of information but in a much more textual type of way. Then, the other one that I used, aside from ATVN, was also the Hands-Free Info, and this one was, like I said, was very grateful and helpful to me, as it gave insightful information on the damages and just overall dangers of cell phone usage while being behind the wheel. So moving on to my research question. While preparing for my survey, I used a research question that could easily be understood by all individuals, so I didn't use any huge amount of wording or anything like that. I kept it down to the 8th grade level. And my research question was, starting off, Tennessee laws, should the state ban the use of cell phone usage while behind the wheel? Close to all of my survey information was conducted through individuals completing the survey through SurveyMonkey Generator, like I spoke about earlier, with the exception of one individual being through a telephone voice message. Then moving on to my method of research procedures, when I conducted this information through the survey, I personally designed the survey by myself. I hand chose all the questions, provided all the different types of charts, even made the theme of it look pretty. I was all for me. I did it all myself. But like I said, I did work on it all by myself. I did have a bit of help from my fiance, however, who did send out a huge message to just a bunch of random people through her contacts, which actually helped me gain up to my number of 30 respondents, which was the minimum. So I really do thank her for that. After looking back at my survey, a few areas I believe I had an issue with would be one, finding the participants. Finding the participants, the only reason why I say that is because a lot of these participants may have been working or had previous plans or something, where even though the survey literally took less than 1 minute, if they did over SurveyMonkey at the same time, I believe that it was just, they may not have the exact time. And then, however, the other one that I really saw was, aside from that one, was also trying my best to make this overall survey 100% perfect. With this being such a huge problem in the United States, it is a subject that really needs to be talked about, and so it's really hard to make it exactly 100% perfect. So that's another thing that I found out. So while nowhere near to perfect, if I was conduct the survey again in the future, the way I would be able to solve my first problem would be just ask respondents much earlier, go ahead and get an acceptance from them. It's like, hey, I just really need this completed before this date, and then give them constant reminders, just like how we did with our focus group. Through that, I think we should be able to be set up for 100% success. And then the other way that I could solve my other problem about being 100% perfect would I would really research the main problems that occurs while texting and driving, I really just research those main problems. So when it is that they text and drive, how far away from their homes, who are the main people that they really text whenever they drive, things like that. I believe if we can find out those huge main areas and also speak about them, not only is that going to make the overall research much more perfect, but at the same time it's going to really help us improve on ways that we can really stop the overall problem that is texting and driving. So moving on to my results, I did have 10 questions, which was the minimum. I had to actually go into my overall amount surveys through SurveyMonkey Generator. So just one moment. I did get a lot of different respondents from a lot of different people, which I found really interesting. My first question was, just about the demographics. I started off with about 4 questions of demographics and then moved on into the much more meatier part of this overall survey. As it says in our textbook, that in order to get a much more successful survey, a individual has to use the more familiar questions first and then move on to a much more, a much more out of their way type of question. So I went ahead and started off with demographics. I started off with, the beginning one, of course, their overall gender. What is their gender? 34.48% were male, with 65.52% being female. So like I said, my overall amount of respondents was mostly female, over half. Moving on to my second question, what age range would you better qualify yourself in? I had 16 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, 46 to 55, and then 56 and up. My highest amount was 16 to 25 year olds, rating at 70%. 26 to 35 was only 1 respondent, so 3.33%. 36 to 45 was 3 respondents, so 10%. And then 46 to 55 was no one, and then 56 and up was 5 individuals, so overall at a 16.67%. Actually, my one telephone interview for the survey was at 56 and up. So I thought that was rather interesting. Question 3, what ethnicity would you qualify yourself? For Asian or Pacific Islanders, I had 1 respondent, so 3.33%. African American ranging at 16.67%. 1 Hispanic, so 3.33% as well. White and Caucasian was my highest amount of respondents, ranging at 70%, so 21 respondents. And I thought this was rather interesting, but I had 1 individual that responded would prefer not to answer. So I thought that was rather curious, but I thought it was pretty cool. So now I got more into the more detailed part of the overall survey. So the question 4, in a typical week with a 4-hour commute being the maximum, how many hours total would you say you spent driving? Overall, I maxed this out at 20 hours or more. I had 36.67% of individuals said they drove less than 4 hours a week. Between 5 and 10 hours, respondents were 46.67%, so 14 respondents. Between 10 and 20 hours was 16.67%, and no one responded with more than 20%. So our highest amount was a little bit less than half, was between 5 and 10 hours worth of driving. And then, moving on to question 5, we got a little bit more personal. I said, when you get into a vehicle, what is your most important thing? What is the most important thing to you? A huge amount of respondents replied with safety of yourself and others. Out of 30, I had 24, so I had only 6 more respondents left. Like I said, that ranged out at 80%. 4 individuals said the radio and finding your favorite music was their most important thing to them. They got into a vehicle. No one said checking your phone for any new messages, so I thought that was rather interesting. 1 individual said that gas was the number 1 important thing, and 1 other individual said that how long their overall trip is going to be was their most important thing to them. Question 6, is cell phone usage behind the wheel dangerous? Now this is where I got really into the overall research question of the survey. A whopping amount of 92.59% of surveyors said that yes, definitely. It was a huge issue. That's 25%. It's only had 5 remaining respondents. A few individuals actually skipped this answer, so only had 27 in total out of 30. No one responded with no, not at all. 2 individuals responded with it depends on the overall situation, which I thought that was rather interesting. And then no individuals responded with I don't drive. Moving on to question 7, if you were to use a cell phone while driving, which would be more dangerous, making a call or text messaging? No one said that making a call. They responded with that. No one responded with that. 23% of the surveyors said that text messaging was a huge issue. It was the most dangerous. That was 76.67%. And then 23.23% responded with both are equally dangerous. So making a call and text messaging were actually both really dangerous. And then no one said that they ever use their cell phone while behind the wheel. I'm not entirely sure that's true or not, but according to the survey data, they all said that they did not. So moving on to question 8, this is where I got more opinion related. I said there is no ban on cell phone usage while driving in the entire Mid-South region. So do you believe there should be a ban on this subject? 35.71% said yes, of course, while 10.71% said no, it's not that big of a deal. I thought that was rather interesting. I guess that may be for the ones who may not actually have a problem with texting and driving as long as they're safe. 53.57% actually answered with this answer. Yes, but it should be legal for some individuals such as emergency responders. I thought that was going to be a really good question to ask, a little bit more different of a question, just for the plain simple fact that it should be illegal for everyone else, but then emergency responders may have to find the closest hospital to them, or maybe where a certain individual is at, or something like that. And I do believe that built-in GPS should be in every single emergency responder vehicle, but if not, it would be good to use like Google Maps or something like that to be able to map out the destination. And then 0% said, I don't care, I could care less, so that was good at least. 2 more questions. Question 9 was, let's say the Mid-South created a ban on cell phone usage. respondents skipped this question, but 28 answered overall. 57.14%, so over half of the individuals, said that a fine between $100 and $500 should be paid for the first offense. 10.71% of responders said that temporary loss of license for 6 months should be the first offense. No respondent said that immediate jail time for 3 months or juvenile detention for 3 months should be the punishment, which I believe was kind of good. A lot of individuals responded with driving school with teachings on the dangers of using cell phones while driving. 53.57% of responders said this, so I thought that was rather interesting. 3 responders actually said that just a warning and a slap on the wrist would be a good punishment for them. So I thought that was rather interesting to look at. I personally believe that a fine and temporary loss of license for 6 months should be the main problem, but I thought it was pretty interesting to see that 3 respondents said this. And then actually 1 respondent said that there should not be a ban on cell phone usage, that is a violation of their rights as an American citizen. I'm really curious as to who this individual was that spoke about that answer, but apparently they believe that there should not be a ban on cell phone usage. And then the last question, question 10, in the next 10 years, where would you like to see the situation with cell phone usage in the car going? 21.43% of respondents said there should be a full nationwide ban on it. So the entire United States of America, there should be an overall ban and no one should be able to use cell phones while driving. 50%, so exactly half of the respondents, said that it should be illegal for everyone except for emergency respondents. So as stated earlier about the emergency responders using it for like location purposes and things like that, those are the only people that it should be illegal for. However, every other civilian should be able to have it illegal. 17.86%, so 5 responders said they think it actually should stay legal, so it should be perfectly fine to use your cell phone while driving, that they're not worried about the dangers of texting and driving. And then 3% of responders actually said, 3 respondents said, I could care less, I am perfectly fine with it staying or going. So no matter what happens in the next 10 years, they're perfectly fine with it being whatever, they could actually care less. So I really believe that all of my questions on here was really interesting, really different. A lot of these questions I was really surprised with, to be completely honest. And other ones, I wasn't surprised with at all. But, like the one respondent that said that, they believe that it should stay legal and that taking away this law was a violation against their American rights. I believe all that information was kind of interesting, to be completely honest. So, moving on to questions, to interpretation and conclusion. So, after looking at all of the survey data, looking into what was next, this is what I found to be really interesting. So after reviewing the results of the survey, a few areas, like I said earlier, ended up surprising me more than I had actually originally expected. Beginning with our first question about gender, out of the 30 survey respondents, 66%